Okay, welcome back, and let's go into another level of detail past the hierarchy to all of those visualizations that are automatically generated, and let's talk about each one. So we talked a little bit about the group roll-up view here. Let's go down a level so we're just looking at it only. Let's talk about how it works and what tools you have available. So first, you have the top bar, which is the parent group. And it is a summary of everything that goes on below here. So you can see 42% of my KPIs. I have 101 KPIs in this group, which is a total of these groups down below. Okay, so that's your top line group, and then you have your individual groups. You have a legend on it. You have any links that might exist to it. You have the ability to share this like any other thing. In the toolbar, you have different ways to view it. So you could view this on a geo map, you could view it in a group map, etc. And then you have a few different tools. One is filtering. Filtering can filter by status or by distance from where you're standing if you're on a GPS. So if you say I only want to see the same view, but I want it filtered by only things within a mile of where I'm standing or 30 meters of where I'm standing. And as I move around, that list will change. Okay, and as my filtered, if I filter by status, that'll also change. If things move to different statuses, then they will dynamically update. Okay, so that's some of the tools. You can also expand and collapse this. So if I expand this, it's going to say, show me all groups underneath this. Now, Long Point and Summer Point don't have any child groups. Exton has one child group. Okay, so let's actually go up a level, and let's see what it looks like to expand this one. In this particular case, it's going to work a little harder because there's a lot of groups in here. So now you can see I've expanded everything even where it gets down and has multiple child groups down to multiple levels. Okay? If it has more than it can show on a page or than it should reasonably show, then you'll get this bar at the bottom that says more groups displayed. Okay, so if you want to expand and keep going, then you can. That just stops you from opening, 10,000 groups at one time. And that's true on other visualizations as well. Okay, so let's collapse that back, and we'll go back to our simple view of Exton, and then the last one is adding groups to a dashboard. So if I do that, it's going to give me a group visualization on the dashboard. So this particular visualization up here in the upper right, which is region Northeast by itself. If I chose Exton and added to my dashboard, it would look just like that. Okay, so that's one way to add multiple of those to a dashboard at one time. So that's a little bit about the roll-up view. Let me tell you one other thing. Clicking on the name will drill down one level. Let's go back up to the top to do this. So clicking on region Northeast will take me down a level, and that's one way to navigate. I go back up. Clicking on the bar next to it will explode the entire tree. So that's going to give me all 100 plus KPIs in this group filtered into this particular view that I have here. So another way to interact with the groups view. Okay, so let's go back up to the top. Links can appear here. A link to a geo map of this particular group will appear here as well if it exists. So that's a little bit about the groups visualization or roll-up. It is a straight percentage-based roll-up of all the KPIs in there. One of the best things about it is you can show all kinds of different things, what we would call apples and oranges together. So you could have finance KPIs and real-time machine data and weather information and human resources data in all these various groups, and you'd still see that, hey, region Northeast is doing worse than region Southeast. Maybe I should go check it out. So very powerful view, very good for showing a lot of information on a small screen. The other thing to know about the visualization, and you'll see this theme repeated in Visual KPI, is that they're very flat, very simple visualizations. So on a mobile phone, you can see a lot of information here in a very small space. If we had used pie charts for these or other big round visualizations, they're not only very hard to read and take up a lot of space, but they're really hard to compare to each other. But in our case, these are all very easy, and you'll see that in other visualizations as we go through it. Okay, so that is the group's roll-up view. Now let's go look at the next view, which is the list view of KPIs. So I'm on a group. I'm on the Exton group here, which I'll come back to repeatedly, just so you have some consistency. Here is a list view of KPIs, and I'll do that on the phone too, just so we're looking at the same thing. Now let's talk about the list view. By default, it has all of these visualizations in it. It has the name, it has the status, it has the spark line, which shows how it's doing over time, so a miniature trend, actual target description, and then a bullet chart. And just like I talked about in the groups thing, this is like a speedometer, but flattened and easy to read and easy to compare to each other. Okay, we'll talk about the bullet chart in just a moment. So on this list view, I have the same thing we've talked about before. I can open up these objects just like in a group. Let me go over here and get to my Exton group on the phone and open this up as well. You'll see in this big version, I had the bullet chart view showing, but this is a smaller screen and the bullet chart is still there. You just need to open it up. So everything is available on any device. Hey, there's some optional things that the administrator can customize. This one has that. It has this thing we call the info column, which we cover in the designer training. And this is where you can get an additional piece of data or links or just put some text in here or something else. So you might say, you know, what's my average speed and then how many trucks am I counting? Or any other thing, that an additional piece of data that you might want. Okay, so this is an optional thing that happens to be enabled on this group. Okay, so that's a little bit about the list view. As it gets smaller, you'll see each of these objects get smaller and go down, and you'll lose the columns here. But again, you've never really lost them because all the information still sits right here. Okay, so that is the list view of KPIs. Next, we will talk about the bullet chart view. So you can see on this big screen that I have a bullet chart view, but on the small screen I don't. There's a dedicated bullet chart view, which on the small screen is really focused on the bullet chart, and on the big screen just moves the order around so that the bullet chart is taking up the majority of your attention. Now the bullet chart, again, like a speedometer, it's a very really easy to read view. The horizontal black bar here is my actual value. So unlike the spark line, which shows how things are going over time, this shows this current moment in time, how am I doing compared to my targets and limits. So again, horizontal line is the actual. The vertical line is the target if you have one. Some KPIs don't have them, they don't have to. And then in the background, you have the ranges. So between 125 and 275 is good. So I'm below my target, but I'm still in the good range on this KPI. If I was down here, my status would be low. Okay, so that's one. That's how this view works. And then again, if you have room, we show you the spark line too. Okay, so that's a little bit about it. Now there's some options around the bullet chart that are very interesting. So first of all these views can be filtered, time ranges can be changed. You can instantly trend these KPIs. You can add them to your watch list, dashboard, or change the visualization. I'll talk about these in the analytics part of the course. But the grouping thing is very interesting here. When you go down here, in addition to grouping this list of KPIs by either a standard or a custom attribute, I can change the bullet chart type. And one of my favorite ones is this deviation, either deviation EU or percentage. I like percentage the best, but this is what it's going to do is wherever there's a target, it's going to center line that target down and show which of these KPIs is deviating by a greater percentage, either positive or negative, compared to its peers. Another really nice visualization. If I add this to my dashboard, it'll keep that customization and show that to me. Also, when you configure these in the designer, you can make them a certain type by default, and everybody will get that. So that's a little bit about the bullet chart view and how that works. The next one over is the KPI Map View. And that is this very big, bold, blocky view of what's happening on a set of KPIs. And in this case, you can see each of these. You have control, or the administrator has control over what types of information appears on them. You also can see that sometimes they're flashing or have this little dog-eared corner. That means they have recently changed. Okay, and you can see this one has a little tooltip on it that it recently changed to double high from good. And right when it changes, it can flash. And again, the administrator has control over if it flashes, how long it flashes, and how long this dog-eared corner stays. So this is that view, and now it also has a few options. I could group it. I could filter it down to individual ones. I'll show you that in a minute. I can expand. I can change the time ranges, even though that's less important here. And then I have this scratch pad, which I showed before. I can just open these up. If I click them again, it'll close them. I can open a different one. I could compare them. I could trend them, do other things with it. Okay, so that's some of the options around the KPI map. Now let me go up a level and show you a bigger KPI map and show you how you might do a little bit of customization on it. So here's one with a lot of information in it. I'm going to filter it down. I'm going to take away things that are going well, take away things that are not in service. And so I've got a little less information to worry about. Again, I could filter it by distance. So here's less information, but it's still grouped the way the administrator set it up for me, and I want to change that. I want to look at it from a different angle. It's one of the most powerful things you can do in Visual KPI is without any pivot table creation or OLAP cubes or any heavy lifting, you can just look at all your information from a different angle as long as someone has decorated it properly. So if I have all these custom attributes in here, this is a power generation example. They have farms and interconnects and such. And if I say, let's look at this by the type of unit it is, then across all my sites, I can instantly see that I have more problems with coal units than I do with gas or hydro units. And again, everybody's view of this would be different, but a really powerful and very obvious view you can see here. And because it's filtered, this list will grow and shrink throughout the day. If one of these KPIs turns from a bad state to a good state, it'll just drop off of this list. If one of the good ones turns to bad, it will automatically get added to this list. So again, really great and really obvious view of information. If I add this to my dashboard, it'll hang on to all this customization as well and keep that live dynamic list kind of view going. Okay, so that's a little bit about the KPI map. Now let's head on all the way to the top here and talk about the group map. The group map view was requested by a few of our customers a long time ago, and a really interesting view. I'm going to do it right here at the top because only a few of these groups are configured for the group map. And the group map is just like the KPI map in that it's these big obvious blocks. It also has the scratch pad and all the same visualization options there, but it's a little bit different. First of all, they're configured into groups, and the group has a fixed number of KPIs that will live in the visualization. So Exton has many more KPIs than this, but whoever set up this particular site said that I only want 10 KPIs per group at this level. And then in the designer, in the configuration, you decide which 10 KPIs and in which order you want them to show. So you can see that this KPI here in this group was always in the 7th position. And so the operators or whoever uses the software always gets used to that particular KPI being that place visually. So that's one asset of this. The second main thing about this group map view is that the group itself has a status. So you can see Exton is in red and test is in red. So the group actually has a color instead of just the individual KPIs. And there's two settings for that. One is, and this is how this one is set up, is that the group color is the status of the worst performing KPI in the group. So you can see both of these groups have a red KPI in it, or one that is at high, and so the whole group status is high or triple high. So that's one part of it, or one way to configure it. The other one is to configure it around the most recently changed KPI. So you can say whichever KPI in this whole group changed last, make the group status that color. And that's not how this one is set up. And then there's also some custom ways to control the status too. That's a little bit more of an advanced feature. If you want to know more about it, just contact us. Okay, so that is the group map, a very powerful and very cool view for managing a large number of groups. And one last option about the group map is the ability to collapse all these. So you might have a lot of groups and you don't actually care about how the KPIs are going on in them individually unless the group is having problems. So you can collapse all of these. Let's say I had 50 groups here, And I can see that the extant group and the test group need my attention right now. So I can just open up those individual ones and see how they're performing rather than having them all open. So that's another option for the group map. Okay, so moving on, let's go back up to the top here and let's look at the Geo Map View. And let's go to this global group here. And this is on the Geo Map View. Again, I can switch views and say, let's look at this as a list, or let's go back to looking at this on a map. Now there's two types of geomaps. The one we're looking at here is a group-based geomap. And what I mean by that is that each one of the objects on it is a group, not an individual KPI. And it is showing me the live status of all the KPIs at this level and below. So I can see there's no red in Europe, and there's a little bit of red in North America, if that's what I was looking for. Again, it's all live. And then if I click in, and I'll do this into Europe again, and we've did this a little bit before. Let's go to France, and let's look at the satellite view here. This is the other type of geomap. When you get down and you're not looking at a group, but you have KPIs at this level, then these are individual KPIs. Now, in the configuration, the administrator has control over what appears in these little tabs and what in the labels here. So you can control that a bit. And then the way it behaves is that if you click on the name, it will open, and click on the name again, it will close. If you click on the trend, it's going to go right to the live trend of that information in a full-size screen. So let me click back again and go back into this map. So that's one thing. Another way that the maps behave is they have some nice dynamic scaling views. So depending on what size you're viewing it on or how zoomed out you are. So I'm going to zoom out. And once these KPIs get close enough to each other, you'll see they'll collapse into an individual group. So you wouldn't want them all sitting right on top of each other. You can't really see them. So as I zoom out, now I can see that there's 4 KPIs and one of them is in a bad state. If I'm ever confronted with this and I want to see how they're doing, I can click right on that object and it will explode it so that I can see all the ones that are in that particular group. Okay, so very nice automatic thing, works great on your mobile phone, and again, you can move it all around. Last note about GeoMaps is we're using Google Maps as the display, but no information is being sent to Google. All of your geolocation information is sitting in Visual KPI, and we're displaying a map that relates to it in the background, but we don't ever send any information over to Google for that. We just pull up and show that in the background. Also very rapid to set up one of these if you're an administrator or configuration. So that is the GeoMap. Let's look even at the dashboard. Let's talk about trends.